The Arizona Cardinals finished the 2023 season with a 4-13 record and missed the playoffs for the 7th time in 8 seasons. The Cardinals knew they were going to be in for a long year, as Kyler Murray unfortunately tore his ACL in December of the 2022 season and would not play his first game until Week 10 of the 2023 season against the Falcons, in a game the Cardinals won to improve to 2-8. Despite Arizona finishing the 2023 season with a 4-13 record, they finished the year with a 3-5 record in their final 8 games and had 8 selections in the top 104 picks of the 2024 NFL Draft. I know the title of today's video of "The Arizona Cardinals Are Going to Be a Problem" is bold, and I know some people, and hell, probably a lot of people, will scoff at the title of a team that has a combined 8 wins over the last 2 seasons, and I get it. But the Arizona Cardinals are doing everything right from a rebuilding standpoint. And in today's video, we are going to break down what we can realistically expect from the 2024 Arizona Cardinals. Are they going to win a playoff game? No, and to be completely honest, I would be very surprised if they make the playoffs. But they are going to be in nearly every game, and they are going to lay the foundation for their future with Kyler Murray and Jonathan Gannon this year. And for what they are, I am very excited to watch the Arizona Cardinals play. And as a preface, they play the Bills, Rams, and Lions in the first 3 weeks of the season, and I think there is a strong possibility they start out 0-3, but I think those games will be a lot closer than what you may think. And we're going to break everything down in today's video. Now let's begin. And we are starting today's video by breaking down who the Cardinals lost in free agency and who they acquired in free agency. They really didn't lose too many players this year, and the one big or notable name they lost was wide receiver Marquise Brown, signing a 1-year $7 million deal with the Chiefs. And just being honest, I thought the Cardinals would try and retain Marquise in free agency, especially for the cost, so I was a little surprised whenever he left to go play for the Chiefs. Now, one of the reasons I thought Marquise would stay in Arizona was they traded a first-round pick for Hollywood during the 2022 draft and also received a third-round pick in return. Now, I know that was from the Cardinals' old regime under GM Steve Keim, but given they gave up what they gave up for Hollywood and the fact he only played 2 seasons for them, well, I thought for sure we would see him in a Cardinals uniform for at least 1 more year. But aside from Marquise Brown, the Cardinals lost Leki Fotu, a defensive tackle who signed with the Jets, and veteran corner Antonio Hamilton, who signed with the Falcons. Fotu was a 4th-round pick for the Cardinals back in 2020, and he was an okay player for Arizona, but certainly not irreplaceable by any means. Antonio Hamilton is a player who played 41 games for the Cardinals over the last 3 years, and all things considered, he was a solid player for the Cardinals, but again, they're not doomed by the loss of Hamilton. In free agency, they brought in Justin Jones from the Bears and signed him to a 3-year deal worth a little over $31 million. I was a little surprised they gave him over $26 million in guarantees from this signing, especially for who he is as a player, but he is coming off of a decent year with Chicago, and the big thing here for the Cardinals that needs to be remembered with a signing like Justin Jones is he was an upgrade from what they previously had. And that's the biggest thing that needs to be remembered with the 2024 Cardinals defense. They finished near the bottom of the NFL in a lot of categories last year, and there was a reason for that. It wasn't necessarily because Jonathan Gannon is a terrible defensive coach, or that his defensive philosophy simply can't work, or that he's not cut out to be a good head coach. It's the simple fact that the Cardinals' defense, from a talent standpoint, is not close to where other teams are offensively. I mean, think about it. Do you honestly think Starling Thomas, a rookie Keitrell Clark, and a 30-year-old Antonio Hamilton last year were going to be able to line up for 70 snaps and stop Brandon Ayuk from dicing them up when they played the 49ers? Or are they going to be able to stop George Kittle every single play? No. And that, along with the fact that Kyler Murray missed nearly half of the year, were the main reasons as to why the 2023 Cardinals were so bad at times. The Browns game specifically was a game where they started Clayton Tune on the road, and that went about as well as expected. Tune finished the day 11 of 20 for 58 yards and threw 2 interceptions. When you factor in he was sacked 7 times for a total of 41 yards lost on those sacks, The Cardinals finished the day with 17 yards passing and just 41 yards rushing for a grand total of 58 yards of offense. And after hearing all of this, the question you may be asking to yourself is, well, why are you bought in with the 2024 Cardinals despite all of this? And there's a few reasons for that. Their defense should be improved from last year, as it's hard to get worse from finishing 31st in points allowed per game, 32nd in rushing yards allowed, 29th in average yards per carry allowed, and 30th in passing touchdowns allowed. Opposing quarterbacks actually had a 32-11 touchdown to interception ratio against the Cardinals over the course of the 2023 season. But by bringing in guys like Justin Jones, Sean Bunting, Bilo Nichols, and Mack Wilson, they are improving as a roster, which is huge. And not only that, but they also invested 3 top 90 picks in their defense in the 2024 draft, including 2 picks in the top 43 in Darius Robinson and Max Melton, both of which we will discuss during the rookie impact part of the video. Now, the unfortunate part of football is season-ending injuries can happen at any time. That's the reality of the game. And second-year pass rusher B.J. Ojulari was a prospect I loved coming out of LSU during the 2023 draft process, and he was, without a doubt, going to be my breakout player for this team entering 2024. Ojulari had 40 tackles as a rookie, 6 quarterback hits, 5 TFLs, and 4 sacks, and that was all accomplished as a 21-year-old rookie. He tore his ACL and is unfortunately done for the season. He will be just 23 entering 2025, but losing him in the preseason was a big blow to this pass rush. Their leading sack getter from 2023 was veteran Dennis Gardeck, who is still on the team, and a player who had over 40 pressures last year. And this was a team that struggled to routinely get after the quarterback. And this is something I expect to continue in 2024. And to go back to the title of the Arizona Cardinals are going to be a problem, this certainly applies more to the Cardinals offense and what they're going to do week in and week out than it does their defense. And the biggest thing with the Cardinals defense entering this year is, as long as they are not bottom 2 or 3 in the NFL, and as long as they give the offense a chance, this team is going to be competing in every game. The 2023 Cardinals allowed 100 yards or more rushing in 14 of 17 games, and in the only 3 games they did not allow 100 yards more or rushing as a defense, the opposing offense had rushing totals of 91, 92, and 93 yards. That's the goal for the 2024 Cardinals defense, as simple as it sounds. Just do not be absolutely terrible, and do not be a hindrance to what the offense is trying to accomplish. The Cardinals allowed 20 points or less in a game just twice in all of last year, and not surprisingly, Arizona won both games. With the personnel the Cardinals have, it would be either naive or foolish to think they're going to be a top 3 unit this year, and a unit that keeps opposing offenses up at night, wondering how they're going to be able to put up points against them on Sunday. But if they can improve from last year, which they should based on their offseason acquisitions, and by playing complementary football, which is not something they did as much as they would have liked last year, then they're going to be better almost by default. And what also has to be remembered is this team went 1-8 without Kyler Murray and 3-5 with him. They're not as hopeless as some people may believe. They're not going to be the same old Cardinals, and they're certainly not going to be a team that gets rolled over every week. I don't expect Dennis Gardeck to be a 50 pressure guy this year, and I don't expect Zaven Collins to be a 13 or 14 sack player this year either, although I think it is worth noting with Zaven in a contract year, it wouldn't surprise me if he has a great 2024 season individually. Zaven was always frustrating to me because they used him as an inside linebacker during the 2022 season, and they used him more as a pass rusher last year, and whenever you spend a top 16 pick on a player, I think you should have a plan before the selection is made. And I know the Cardinals haven't experienced a lot of winning for a few years now, but they are doing the right things, and this was never going to be an overnight rebuild. I think 2023 was the true bottoming out for Arizona, and that 2024 will be a stepping stone for what we can expect in 2025 and beyond. The 2024 Arizona Cardinals offense is one of the offenses that I am looking forward to most watching this year. And I know that may be a surprise, but they are going to be a thorn in a lot of teams' sides, and they are going to be a pain in the rear end to play. Their philosophy is going to be to run the football, ground and pound the rock, and we are going to effectively kick your rear end and take names later. And there were two selections outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. that I really loved that the Cardinals had in the 2024 draft, and actually even more than that, but we'll get to that in a minute. The first selection was running back Trey Benson. Trey is a very, very good player, and I think he's going to fit in this offense like a glove. And when you pair Trey with James Conner, who is on the downside of his career as he was a rookie all the way back in 2017, and he's not going to play forever, nor is any running back. But when you pair Trey Benson and James Conner, two 220-plus pound backs in this offense, behind this offensive line, and when you also pair tight end Tip Ryman, who was supposed to be a mid to late day 3 selection, and when you draft him at number 82 overall, there was a reason they selected him at number 82, and it was because they want to have that 6th offensive lineman value that Tip provides and be able to run a lot of 12 personnel, which for those who may not know is 1 running back and 2 tight ends. That way they can still have 2 receivers out wide, which of course would be Marvin Harrison Jr. and then Michael Wilson, and still have the receiving threat from one of their tight ends in Trey McBride. That way they can stay bulky by having the 2nd tight end out there, which would be the effective 6th offensive lineman and Tip Ryman, and still have a 220-plus pound back, whether it be James Conner or, of course, Trey Benson. This is one of the reasons as to why I'm so excited for the 2024 Cardinals offense. And this isn't even talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, or the breakout player for today's video, Michael Wilson. If you want to defend the pass and specifically protect against Marv beating you over the top or even beating you intermediate and going for 140 yards and a touchdown, which he will do throughout the 2024 season, and there is a reason the hype for Marv is as insane as it is, and for what it's worth, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best receiving prospect I've ever evaluated. Well, then if you try and take guys out of the box and you want to bring in a nickel or even a dime package and you want to really protect against the pass, then they can just ground and pound you and get 5 or 6 at a time and continue to do that until you prove you can stop the run. With James Conner and with Trey Benson both feeding off of each other this year, they're going to be an incredibly difficult team to defend because it's really going to be pick your poison. Do you want to let Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride and even Michael Wilson as the 3rd option beat you? Or do you want to try and have 7, maybe 8 guys at a time in the box and then have one-on-ones outside with Marv and with Michael Wilson? It is a lot of the time going to be a losing effort for opposing defenses, and it's really going to be more of a bend not break when you are playing the 2024 Cardinals offense. No defensive coordinator is going to be saying, you know what, feed us Arizona, we're absolutely going to manhandle them. Now, are they going to be perfect? No, absolutely not. And their offensive line at a couple of positions could be a little better, but they're going to be a really solid unit, and the main reason why I'm excited for the 2024 Cardinals is I really think their offense is going to help out their defense because of how often they're going to be on the field, meaning the offense is going to be on the field more than the defense, and the defense isn't going to have to make as many stops as they did last year. And I know the defensive talent for the Cardinals is not all that, and I get that, and I completely acknowledge that, but if the Cardinals are running the football effectively and then feeding Marv and Trey McBride also at a solid rate, the defense isn't going to have to make as many stops because they're not going to be out there as often. So for me, the sky is the limit with the 2024 Cardinals offense, and it's really as high as the offensive line will allow them to go. From a stat projection standpoint, I think Kyler will be right around 4,100 yards passing, 23 or 24 touchdowns, and he'll probably throw in another 400 yards rushing and another 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns as well. I really can't wait to see how this offense does, and I do think Marvin Harrison Jr. will go for over 1,000 yards as a rookie. The Arizona Cardinals should have a lot of rookie impact early on, period. Marvin Harrison Jr., like we said during the offensive portion, the best receiver I've ever evaluated as a prospect. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, silky smooth routes. You can tell that his dad was working with him from a route running standpoint from a young age. Marv gets it. There's really no flaw in his game. The only flaw in his game is that he might not be like a 4.30 guy or a 4.29 guy. He's elite, man. And if he plays all 17 games, I have said this on record before, I'll say it again. If he plays all 17 games and does not get 1,000 yards as a rookie, I would be very surprised. Now, aside from Marv, I liked this class. The one player I was a little hesitant on was Darius Robinson, mainly because they took him at 27 overall, and I thought there were a couple of other better prospects available, most notably Johnny Newton, who went to the Commanders in the early part of the second round. But the main concern that I have with Darius is that he's a bit of a tweener, meaning he's not exactly a 3-tech defensive tackle, and he's a little too big to be a pass rushing defensive end. Like, I'd like him to be maybe 10 or 15 pounds thinner if he were to be a 5 or even a 7-tech out there at defensive end. So that concerns me a little bit. He reminds me a little bit of Keon White, who was a second-round pick from Georgia Tech that went to New England last year, but I still think Darius can be productive, and with Jonathan Gannon and Imani Ozenfort, unlike the Steve Keim era, I really think they have a plan with him, and I think he will be okay in the long run. But like we say so many times with players in the trenches, don't expect defensive rookie of the year conversation around Darius, because I think he's going to take a little bit of time to get transitioned to the league, and that's fine. Now, other players I liked, Max Melton, I think he will start right away at nickel. He'll be fine. Now, I think he'll be fine in the long run, that is. There's going to be times this year with the Cardinals pass rush that's not going to get home as often as other teams, and what I worry about with not just Melton, but with their other corners, whether it's Sean Murphy-Bunting, whether it's Garrett Williams, whoever, there's going to be times where they probably end up on the wrong end of highlight reels, which would not be their fault because the pass rush simply can't get home. And that's one concern that I do have with the 2024 Cardinals that I think will in turn affect second-round rookie Max Melton. There were a lot of other players I liked in this class. Trey Benson, we discussed. I think he's going to have at least 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns as a rookie, and I really can't wait to see the duo of him and James Conner. And there's going to be a game or two this year. I'm saying this now. This may be my bold prediction of the video, that the Cardinals are going to win that you may not expect. Now, I'm not claiming they're going to go into San Francisco, show them who's boss, and win 27-10 or anything like that, but there's going to be a game or two. Dallas last year would have been an example, which they won by double digits, by the way, where Arizona wins because they pound the rock, they create a timely turnover or two, and they impose their will in the second half. And that's going to happen at least once, maybe twice this year. Tip Ryman, not going to be a stat sheet guy. That's fine. He's going to have a very key and very carved out role in this offense, and I can't wait to see how he does this year. I also really like Dadrian Taylor Demerson and Xavier Thomas. Good depth pieces along the defense. Hopefully Xavier works out for them. But overall, I really, really like this class. And whenever you compare Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., what is there to be upset about? Marv's going to be a 1,000-yard player from day one if he stays healthy. Trey McBride will only get better, and by having Marv and Trey in the same offense, that's also going to unleash Michael Wilson as well, who's going to get a lot of one-on-ones, and a guy who will, fortunately for Michael, never be the number one priority. So by bringing in Marv, that's going to open up a lot of things for the rest of the offense. The 2024 Arizona Cardinal rookie class is going to have a lot of impact, and I really liked this class, and whenever they traded back last year so the Titans could move up to go get Will Levis, I loved that decision because they got an extra 3 this year, and we're going to see all of that pan out for the Cardinals, not just in 2024, but in 2025 and beyond as well. The Arizona Cardinals 2024 schedule, let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. Let's just go ahead and address the elephant in the room. It's tough. Their first 6 games are incredibly difficult as they play the Bills, Rams, Lions, Commanders, 49ers, and Packers. And whether the team playing that schedule is the Cardinals or whoever, that's going to be a tough 6-game stretch for anybody. And unfortunately for Arizona, that's how they start their season. Now, what needs to be remembered is this team is rebuilding. They are not expected to go 11-6 or 12-5 this year. And as long as they don't start out 0-6 or 1-5, and if in fact they can be 2-4 through those first 6 games, even 3-3, the schedule's only going to get easier as time goes on. And whenever they get to December, and whenever they are entering the dog days of the schedule, which fortunately for Arizona, they have a late bye, which will only help them in the long run, they are going to be not fresher per se, because every team's going to take their hits throughout the year, but they're going to be a team nobody wants to play because they're not going to let up. And in a lot of ways, this team reminds me of the Lions from a few years ago from a philosophy standpoint. Now, I don't think they're going to have the success as much as the Lions had, just because of how incredibly hard that is to repeat or to hit on as many picks as the Lions did. But from a, we're going to be gritty, we're going to dominate you in the trenches, that's what the Cardinals remind me of, kind of like how the Lions were just not even last year, but in 2021 and 2022. You know, they're going to be the last team standing. I don't expect a lot of wins for Arizona this year, and I don't think anybody expects a lot of wins for them, but if they can finish somewhere around 6-11, 7-10, maybe if they can pull out a couple that we don't expect right now, maybe 8-9, I think that would be a very successful year for them. But what also has to be remembered is this is not your standard 4-13 team from a year ago. They finished the year 3-5 in their final 8 games because they didn't have their franchise quarterback for the first 9 games last year, which nobody is going to fare well if they don't have their starting quarterback for the first 9 games of the year. So the Arizona Cardinals are going to be a thorn in a lot of teams' sides, and they're going to be a team nobody wants to play. I think their final win projection will be around 6-7 wins, and ultimately I have them missing the playoffs this year. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like and subscribe as it helps the channel tremendously, and we are closing in on 150k subs, which I cannot thank you guys enough for the support. If you guys enjoyed this, please check out the Football Analysis Podcast. The link is in the description, and I will see you next time. Love you guys.